Hi guys, time for another comparison video, and today we have the Samsung Galaxy A5 2016 versus the A3 2016. I already compared the A5 with the S7, so check that one if you want to, but today it's about these two, and it's a little bit less of a showdown but more of a video to show off the differences between those two, because not just the size is different but a few things are missing on the A3, just so you are aware of that if you maybe think about getting the smaller one and maybe just lose a little bit in terms of display size. There is a little bit more. So as you can see, 5.2 inches against 4.7, that is the most obvious thing here. A few other differences here is the button placement, it's a little bit lower here. Other than that, they sound pretty much the same. The power or the home button on the A3 is a little bit more flush and actually feels a little nicer compared to the A5, which just clicks a little bit cheaper, but that's actually the main differences here, because the rest is pretty much the same. Curved 2.5D glass on both sides, so they feel very round, very substantial and very premium. The A3 manages to feel even a little bit better just because of the more compact feel in hand, but both of them are just built excellently and I love the feel of both of them. Now let's check the display here. We have 5.2 inches 1080p on the A5, if it would rotate, against 4.7 inches with 720p on the A3. In terms of brightness, the A5 is at about 5% brighter compared to the A3. Other than that, the white point is absolutely excellent on both. Blacks are pretty much perfect on both. The colors are pretty much the same. I don't really see a difference here. Contrast ratio and all that is pretty much the same. The main difference you will still see is the sharpness, because the A5 is still noticeably sharper than the 720p display. Even though 720p on 4.7 inches works out absolutely fine, the 1080p screen just pops out more and is definitely a flagship level display. This one just is a tad less sharp. About the sound though, there is actually a little bit a bigger difference than I expected it to be. So let's check that one. Let's start it. Okay, let's try one more. So once again, same as on the S7, I'm not quite sure how big the differences will be on the speaker. If you hear that on the microphone, you would need, I guess, a headphone to hear the differences, but from my standpoint, it's quite obvious. The the A5 sounds a little bit more flat and it's just not quite as loud as the A3. The A3 is almost on par with the S7, a little bit richer and a little bit louder than the A5. So there's the win definitely for the A3. It's still good on the A5, but yes, it is better on the A3. So let's check the performance now. And we have 2 GB of RAM on the A5 and just 1.5 on the A3. Of course, we have a little bit less resolution, so it could make up for it. But actually about the performance, if we check the browsing performance here in the A5, it looks smooth. It's not super smooth, and I said that already in the S7 video. There are a few more lags and stutters here and there, but if we check the A3, I have to say, from my standpoint, it looks noticeably smoother. So there's a little bit of an advantage, maybe because of the lower resolution. Same goes here for Phoenix, as you can see here. Nice performance, absolutely fine. A few stutters here and there, but this one, okay, there was some lag now, but in general, it feels a little bit lighter, this device. And I've noticed this throughout the whole use of it so far. It just seems to perform ever so slightly better. It's not huge, and it's definitely not enough to make a big difference or any impact on the decision. But as you can see, yeah, you have to use it to really feel it, and I give it the win. Where though this one is still even less of impressive, the A3, is with the RAM. 1.5 is still a little weaker than the 2 GB of RAM. So the overall win maybe still goes to the A3, because a little bit of more smoothness is a little bit more important for me than the RAM management on the 2 GB version, because even 2 GB on the A5 don't really impress me anyways. Now about the battery life. 1 hour and 45 of charge for the A5 and about 1 hour and I think it was 50 for the A3 because it doesn't support quick charge, which the A5 does. In terms of battery life, I can't say quite so sure yet, because on the A5 we easily get 6 hours plus. I even managed to go over 7 hours once. On the A3 I'm not so sure yet, because I just started the battery review for now. The one battery rundown then I had was 7.5 hours of video playback with a brightness of 55%. So it seems to be very impressive. Not maybe quite as good as this. I would say maybe like 5 to 10% less. Both are battery bombs. Really great job. But the A5 seems to be slightly better. In terms of software, they're absolutely identical. A few minor things are missing though on the A3, like for example dual window. It's just not available. We also don't have the fingerprint reader. There are a few minor things different, but really not much enough to make a huge difference either. Now about the camera, the main difference is the A5 has optical image stabilization, which the A3 unfortunately doesn't have. And this is most obvious in videos, because I did a video test today side by side, and the A3 definitely has a lot of micro wobbles, and it's just a little bit on the shaky side, where the A5 does a quite nice job getting those stutters or wobbles out of the way. So overall it seems to be the better camera if you hold it still. If you can do it really nice, the camera would be on par, but in low light situations and wherever you hold the camera in your hand, the A5 will just perform better. So let's get to the quick recap. Design and build quality, I can't really choose a winner because that's a thing of personal preference. If I would just have to choose for the better in-hand feel, due to its size, the A3 feels better, but they're pretty much just a blown up version of that, so no real winner here. In terms of display, due to its higher sharpness, the A5 wins. The rest would be great, but there is a noticeable difference in terms of sharpness. In terms of sound, the A3 wins. It just sounds noticeably richer and is also a little bit louder. In terms of performance, if a slightly better RAM management is important for you, with a few more stutters here and there more, the A5 is the winner, but I prefer a slightly smoother experience, and that's why I give the win to the A3. In terms of software, no real difference here. You get dual window, so if you want to see that as an advantage, then it would be the win. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. In terms of battery life, both absolutely amazing. Ever so slight performance advantage in terms of battery life, I think, is on the A6. I definitely need a few more days to see what this one compares, but from all the testings I did throughout the week, battery rundown, standby drain, all that, the A3 seems ever so slightly worse. And in terms of camera, I said it already, optical image stabilization makes the A5 still a noticeable winner. So in the end, I said it already, what you lose in terms of size out on the A5, that's obvious. You use the fingerprint reader, you use out a little bit resolution, a tiny bit of battery life, therefore get a slightly better performance and the weaker camera. If all that's worth it for you, that's something you have to decide. Of course, in terms of overall value and a better, smarter choice, also being a little bit more future-proof, I would go for the A5 because overall it just makes more sense. It's a little bit bigger, the screen is just sharper, and 720p these days is almost a little bit outdated, even though it works out nice. It's only the performance that is a tad weaker here. Battery life is also better, also the camera. But if you consider this for a price of $260, you still get a more than solid device. It feels premium and all the qualities are absolutely high-end still. And it's one of the best smaller compact phones that I've used in a certain time. Just as a comparison for maybe the Sony Xperia Z5, which I would choose. And if it's about the in-hand feel, I would definitely give the A3 the winner. Display also ever so slightly to the A3 because of the AMOLED display. Speaker, even though the A5 has a good one, it still can't compete quite with the really good one on the Z5 Compact due to stereo front facing. Battery life is definitely better here. Performance, of course, was better on the Sony because it still had the Snapdragon 810. It just was overall smoother and had also 2 GB of RAM. And in terms of camera, I'm not quite so sure. Of course, the Sony should be better, but I don't have the best experience with the camera so far on Sony devices, so they're both great. I think the Sony could win it slightly here. In terms of software, you have to decide for yourself because we have TouchWiz, not called TouchWiz anymore, against the Sony UI. And I actually know to appreciate some of the benefits on the TouchWiz UI. Sony is a little bit lighter, a little bit more stockish, but this one is maybe a little bit capable, even though we don't have the whole functionality that we have on the A5. I think that helps out, and if you maybe want to know something about the A5 versus the Sony Xperia Z5, then I'm not quite so sure. I could address that in another video. So that's it for today. Once again, here they are, all that. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you have something to say, maybe if you issues deciding, just leave me that in the comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this content, subscribe to the channel, reshare this video, and other than that, I wish you a nice day. Until next time, bye.